Welcome back to Melody Loves Death Metal. Happy Monday. Not talking about death metal today. Obviously talking about the new Gaerea album that just came out this past Friday, October 25th. Yeah, a lot of people, surprisingly, because I think you all know that this is my favorite black metal band at the moment, were asking me my opinions on this. Even like seeing, I was commenting on other YouTuber videos these last couple of days, and people were seeing my comments and replying thoughts on the new Gaerea album, which I thought was funny. This one and Blood Incantation, and there was one other album this year that a lot of people were really interested to know what my thoughts were on, which is still crazy to me that people care. But so anyway, let me just start off by saying a little disclaimer here. Yes, this is my currently my favorite black metal band. So there's going to be a very bias here. I call these half-ass metal reviews because I don't go into extreme details of the production or like how the mix sounds or how the hi-hat might be too high or the vocals are too low, and like I don't do any of that shit. There's plenty of other YouTubers out there that do that. There's plenty of other metal bloggers and whatever else that do that. It's just never been my thing. I just pretty much straight up talk about my feelings on the album, why I like it, and move on from the day. Yeah, that's really all it is. I don't even rate them or anything like that. I do go a little bit more in depth of my reviews on heavy metallurgy. I do try to do more track by track analysis and talk really more detail about the albums there. But here, no, not so much. So this is their fourth full length album. The band is from Portugal, and I've got into them when Limbo came out. They did like a live stream event with Behemoth, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of who Gaerea was, and that was back in 2020, like in the height of COVID. And after that, I became a big fan of them. Limbo, I really enjoyed. That was obviously my intro to them. But then I did go back and listened to Unsettling Whispers, which was their first full length, and then picked up their EP from 2016, and I really loved their back catalog, and I was like, okay, so I really got into this band. Damn it, dog, why are you barking? Stop it. I have a puppy. He is gonna be 6 months old next week, and there's my cat dog, Dolly, who likes to lay in the window like a cat. So we don't edit out this shit. So anyway, Mirage came out in 2022. This was absolutely a stunner, and this is what really, really, really made me fall hard for this band. And then I ended up seeing them live last year when they came to Tampa, and just ultimately have become a huge fan. Can you please stop, dog? Please stop. Please stop with the rumbling and the growling. What's going on here? Yeah? You good? That's Duke, by the way. He's a corgi puppy. So this pretty much solidified my absolute love for the band. Now, I always say this. I am not a black metal aficionado at all. I, again, just started really diving into this genre of music within the last, 10 years or so. And it's very rare and random. Like, I don't go all in like I have with obvious other genres of music, aka death metal. So I don't like a lot of the legacy black metal bands that people hail as legendary. It's just not really my genre music that I'm really well versed in, that I really have. I don't have the appreciation that a lot of other YouTubers I'm sure you watch do, unfortunately. I do like a lot of legacy ones. I will say that. I do obviously love Bathory, and I showed off their whole entire collection a while back, and I like Marduk and stuff like that. But in terms of black metal, I'm not super particular on it in regards to how it should sound, what they should look like, what the culture should be. None of that shit. And I generally don't give a crap if the production is okay. A lot of people just want their black metal to sound like absolute garbage. I'm not necessarily like that, although I do like a lot of that. I do like a lot of the garbage sounding raw black metal. But my favorite black metal style of music genre within the genre is atmospheric black metal. I just love it. So I always give that caveat because some of the most criticism I get on my channel is when I talk about black metal. It's a very passionate fan base within the genre, and they tend to really like to rip into me because I am a basic black metal bitch, which yes, I am. I am not offended by that whatsoever. So always throw out that caveat. But yeah, so now we've got Coma. And I've heard this a couple of times before I actually got this physical release on Saturday, so I already knew what to expect. I already knew what I was going to say when I recorded this video, but I wanted to have the physical copy before I recorded it. So we'll show off the vinyl here. The album artwork, I was not a fan of when I first saw it, but after like seeing the details of it, it's a pretty cool piece of art. Like there's a lot of details in this piece of art and just the eye, and obviously it's very different from their past album covers. But this one is interesting with how Season of Mist pressed this. I don't know if this was intentional or what. So here is the album cover, like with Gaerea and Coma up the right way. However, the vinyl comes out from the bottom. So if you put it in the jacket with the hype sticker up correctly, and you take it out of the jacket, that shit falls right out, and it's very loose, so I don't know what the deal was that. So my OCD, unfortunately, is just completely upset right now. I mean, look at that. Like, even, like, the vinyl itself is coming out right there. So I'm not too sure if that was the overall best quality of design there. I don't know if that was intentional, if it was a misprint and they just went with it and said, oh, we'll just shoot it off. So if you don't want it to fall out, you just want it to be a normal record, you have to have it on its side like this. But however, the spine is blank, so there's no words like that. So if you put that in the shelf, you have a blank spine. So you still have to put it upside down for the spine to be normal. It's hard to see because my camera sucks ass in your record shelf. So just my little criticism of the vinyl. Not a big deal, really. Obviously, you buy it for the music. However, just if you're a vinyl collector, that's going to be something that really bothers the shit out of you. Printed inner sheet with the lyrics and then the band picture. And for me personally, the whole entire, like, masks, like, ooh, they're super, like, nobody knows who they are. That's not true. You see them at concert, they walk around without their masks on. They're not, like, one of those bands where they have to be incognito all the time. They're not at all. In fact, their names are out there. You know exactly who they are. This is just their on-stage presence. So, yeah, and people dog on this and are like, oh, they're ripping off all this other bands. Like, yeah, you know what? Like, literally, everybody rips off everybody nowadays. Like, the originality of things are, unfortunately, pretty few and far in between when it comes to extreme metal. But, it works for them, whatever. I don't really care that they wear masks or anything like that. In fact, if they sold a mask, I'd probably fucking buy it because that's how much I love this band. And I'd wear it every single day in my videos just to piss the people off. So there's a printed inner sheet here with really cool detailed artwork again. Just within the artwork, you see a lot of the details in there. It's a very cool drawing. I'll figure out who did it in just a minute. And then inside, other side here's the liner notes. And then the record comes inside this. I have not put it in my own inner sleeve yet. I have not even spun this yet. I got it on Saturday as I was walking out the door for the weekend. And so I'll be spinning this a lot today. A nice little purple record. I think there was like 3 color variants and then plain black. So the artwork is done by Nathan Lorenzana. There you go. I really like it. It doesn't really go with the aesthetic of their past albums, which were all black. But it is what it is. So one thing to call out for this album is, yes, they have a new vocalist. And that vocalist is Gaerea, I think is how you say it. I probably butchered that. I'm so sorry. Who was the lead guitarist in the band previously. So he's been in the band for a while. So they did something similar to the Black Dahlia. Ruben did not die, though, so that's not what happened here. He left the band. Where they picked the guitarist who had been in the band for a while to be the lead vocalist. So probably a good move. And probably some of the criticism I've been seeing on this album, mostly amongst YouTubers, not so much among like the metal bloggers, which I don't really read their reviews anyway, is the vocalist. And they say right out the gate that they can tell that it's a different vocalist. And I'm going to be 100% fucking honest with you guys. I don't really hear all that much of a difference with him and Ruben, to be honest with you. They have very similar styles of vocals. I think that's probably why, I think they did that on purpose. Yeah, Gaerea's got more of a growl that is more of like a death metal style vocalist. But he still has the same like disso black metal style that Ruben had in past albums. So that wasn't really anything that I like deterred me from listening to the album or like thought it was like a an issue. I honestly like I've listened to this album probably like 5 or 6 times now. I even did the listening party on Bandcamp, which was really cool. More bands need to do that. That was a lot of fun. Um, but like I don't hear it. I don't hear it. I've listened. I've watched a couple of other YouTubers already review this, and like that was their criticism was that the vocalist wasn't as dark and heavy as Ruben, and I'm like, I don't agree with that at all. Like, in fact, I really fucking disagree with that. I think this album is very heavy still from their past, like, oh, very much in vain with this. I think it's very much a continuation of Mirage. I do. The only difference, and I think it's relatively subtle, it's not super out there different, is that it's got more melody and a little bit more atmosphere added into it. It's a more emotionally gut-wrenching album. I think they've added more emotion into their songwriting. They've added probably more personal experiences within their songwriting. I think during the listening party they explained the tracks and like what was written about. So I think that was a pretty cool thing to take part of, knowing those things. But in terms of like the heaviness and it being Gaerea, it's still very much Gaerea. Like it does not sound way off or different. And some other criticism is that it sounds brighter. I don't see a gleaming brightness of anything on this album. This is probably the darkest and gut-wrenching album that you're still going to get from Gaerea. Like, this album is very depressing. It maybe just more melody that's in here that makes it seem brighter, or more, I don't know, like, brighter just does not seem like a good term for me to use for this. I still think that it's still crushing. Like, there are some moments on here that are like, oh, god damn, that just completely melted my head, pummeled my head with how they start these songs. But it's still a very dark and dark atmospheric like album. Like there's still that Gaerea dissonance that they've had on past albums. Definitely Mirage was that. Like I feel like Mirage was the opus. Like everybody was like, oh man, this band is so good. Like that was their album that everybody's probably gonna claim to be their best. And like me personally, like yes, that album is for me a perfect 10 out of 10. This album for me is also a perfect 10 out of 10. I think in fact I like this a little bit more, and that's because I have a little bit more relatable feelings to it, because it doesn't just, it's not just heavy, it's not just dark, it's not just copy paste Gaerea from Mirage. Let's just continue on with that and do that sound because that's what people know us as. Like they definitely still have their sound. Like they're still the same band. And yeah, the new vocalist here is slightly different than what you're hearing in the past albums. But it's not really that different at all. In fact, I will challenge anybody who has never really listened to this band to just take that little knowledge out there. There's a vocalist change. Listen to Mirage and then listen to this and then tell me how much of a difference you were able to notice, because I really don't think people are going to notice that much. I welcome the change that they're doing on this album. They're progressing their sound to be a little bit different, although not super different. Like they're not way out there like some bands tend to do when they try to change their sound. They're still very much the same band. They're still very much that Gaerea sound that people have fallen in love with. However, I feel like that they've taken more of a personal side with this album, and they've exposed themselves to be a little bit more vulnerable in terms of that gut-wrenching, like sorrowful. It's very sorrowful, very sad, melancholic album. And they've added a little bit more melody and a little bit more atmosphere into this, but still have very crushing riffs, still has very crushing, dense, and pummeling vocal style that they've always had in their albums. But again, it just feels like it's a little bit more personal album. And I think that they pretty much have said that from the get-go when we in the Bandcamp listening party and probably other interviews and stuff like that. So this was the limited to 500 copies worldwide purple edition. So people like to see the hype sticker. In terms of like standard Season of Mist vinyl pressings, this pretty much goes against the grain of what you're used to getting from past releases, especially their past releases where there were really heavy gatefolds. double LPs and stuff like that. Like it's kind of a nice change. However, the fact that the opening of the vinyl, if you take it out of the jacket, the vinyl falls out the bottom, so you have to unfortunately go against your OCD here, and put it in the jacket a different way. So yeah, to get the spine, that's just the only nitpicky thing. So yeah, I mean, I really like this album. I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody at all, especially if you've been following this channel for the better part of the last 2 years. You know that I really love this band, especially if you're following me on Instagram, because I'm constantly sharing their shit and talking about them over there and reposting and posting their albums because every time I listen to them. It's a 10-track, 15-minute long album. I think that is long. I think it's a pretty long album in regards to it being a very depressing and like this is not an album you want to listen to when you're in a good mood. I'll be telling you that right now. If you want to listen to an album that keeps you happy and whatever else, yeah, you listen to something like I don't even know, because I don't really ever feel like that when I want to listen to metal. Anyway, power metal. You listen to power metal if you want to be happy. But yeah, I think 50 minutes is that would honestly, if it was like 45 minutes, it would have been fine. I don't think the length is really that big of a problem. Some people I could see, since it is kind of an exhausting listen because of how emotionally dragging it can get, 15 minutes can seem like a eternity. But since I love the album so much and I've listened to it over and over and over for the last like week since I've had access to it, I think it's a great amount of album length. My favorite songs on here are quite possibly every single one of them. But if I'd had to pick my favorite, I think Wilted Flower, which is a very different Gaerea song that we're not really used to listening, is an incredible song. It's very emotional. It's got more of the slower pace, a little bit more. There's a little bit more of cleaner vocals on here, not like super clean vocals, but there's like the chanting, the choral chanting on this. And I think that adds an atmosphere to this that is just so good, and I've got goosebumps in those parts of this album. Reborn's an awesome song. Shapeshifter is probably my favorite song on this album. It's so heavy. It's also one of the longer tracks on the album, minus the opening song, The Poet's Ballad, which is a 7-minute long track. That is a great song as well. I think that's an awesome album opener. And then Kingdom of Thorns ends the album. For the most part, there's not a single filler song on here at all. Every single song is very good. World Ablaze was the single that they came out with initially. When I first heard that, I was like, I feel like I might need to hear this with the whole album. So I'm going to just take a moment here, listen to the single, and not really judge anything on it. I liked the song, don't get me wrong, but now that I have it with the whole entire album, that song really has grown on me a lot, and it's really good. Also, one of the songs that's the shortest on the album. So, Coma, the title track is very good. Suspended, oh, that's a great song. Suspended's awesome. That's the third song. And I think the first like 4 songs of this album were available on Bandcamp for a while. I don't really remember. So you probably are really well versed with the first half of this album, and then the second half is probably what people are really listening to now. All in all, I think it's a solid album across the board. I don't think there's any bad songs on here. I don't think they should remove any songs. I think it all blends together really well. It's very cohesive, and they're progressing their sound. They're changing it, and I don't think that they're doing it to be so super extreme. However, I like that they didn't just do a copy paste album this time around, because Mirage was very, very good. And I think, to be honest with you, it was in the back of my mind of how are they going to follow this up. And for a band like Gaerea, who I feel are very talented, very good songwriters, have great stage presence, they're awesome live. I'm not surprised that they followed up with a phenomenal album that is just as good, if not, in my opinion, possibly a little bit better. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. This is just my review. Obviously, if you want to gauge your own opinion, you listen to the album yourself. But those are my thoughts on it. Is it going to be... This is often the main question, obviously. Is it going to be album of the year? I don't even know, man. Like, there's been probably like 30 albums that I've thought this year, like, oh, that's my album of the year, and then something new comes out, and I'm like, never mind. So what I'm going to be doing, obviously, over the course of the next 2 months, is going back and re-listening to all these albums that I've really loved this year, and just pretty much pick the one that I listen to the most and have that be my album of the year. And right now, if I were to stop everything and say, what is my album of the year? It's going to be Blood Incantation, because that is what I've been listening to the most the last several weeks. I probably have spun it more than any of the other albums that have come out so far this year. However, I really love this album. I've been really looking forward to it. This is one of my most anticipated albums of the year. I was super pumped about it. I was sad that I didn't get it on release day. That doesn't usually happen with me. I don't usually care too much about that. But I was having that FOMO of like my friends were getting it before me, but I didn't have the vinyl yet. And then Saturday it was dry. It was delivered, and I like ran downstairs and ripped it open and looked at it, and then had to put it back down and leave because we were leaving. And I was sad all day that I wasn't able to spin it yet, and I still have not spun it because we were gone all day yesterday. So this will be my day of spinning and just hugging the vinyl. And yeah, so haters be damned. I don't give a shit if you don't like the band. Literally, this is probably one of the most criticism I get whenever I talk about this band on here, because again, the black metal elitists, the people that want to keep it OG and whatever else, just consistently have to come in the comments and tell me that. So you're fine. You don't need to tell me that. I understand. I get it. And it's totally fine if you don't like the band. I'm not saying you have to, but I don't care. Like, just whatever. I'm telling you what I thought. This is my half-ass review. That's all I have today. Hope you guys have had a great weekend. I have so much shit I gotta record, so the content's just gonna be like almost every day this week. And I have a backlog of videos that I said I would record for people that have sent me things and asked me to review things and stuff like that. And I want to do it because it's all things that I'm really excited to talk about. So lots of videos coming this week. I'll see you guys in the next one.